Is your bracket busted yet? Because the madness is here. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jordan Berger.
And I'm Lindsay Fafoglia. The NCAA basketball tournament is underway for both the Tiger teams. We have team coverage tonight with KOMU 8's Matt Weller in Nashville and Landon Burke in Palo Alto. Let's start with Matt Weller live at Bridgestone Arena, where the men's game versus Florida State just tipped off. Matt.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm outside Bridgestone Arena in downtown Nashville, where the Missouri Tigers are about to tip off their first NCAA tournament game in 5 years as they take on the Florida State Seminoles. This game was supposed to tip off at about 8:45. That obviously hasn't happened. Earlier in the day, Texas and Nevada went to overtime. That pushed everything back. Right now, we're waiting on the end of the Xavier and Texas Southern game for Missouri and Florida State to take the court. It's been 5 years, though. What's another 30 minutes for the Missouri fans to wait? Talked to a lot of fans from Missouri here on Broadway and Nashville just behind me. They said that they think this is a huge moment for the program, and they're thrilled to be back in the NCAA tournament. Talked to one fan in particular who is from Nashville. He said he couldn't believe his eyes when he saw that his alma mater was coming to play in his hometown.
I actually almost fell off my couch. My wife and I had gotten tickets for the whole weekend. We had planned to go to the games regardless. Growing up as a kid, my dad and I used to go to games, and my brother. So we had actually invited my dad to come down for the weekend. So we were planning on going to the games. Really didn't expect Mizzou to be here, so it was just kind of a surprise.
We'll expect about a 9:30-ish tip-off between Missouri and Florida State. Stick around in the sports block. We'll have plenty of more updates coming up from downtown Nashville. For now, outside Bridgestone Arena, Matt Weller, KOMU 8 Sports. And now we'll send it out to Palo Alto, Landon Burke, following the Missouri women.
Hey, Matt, thank you very much. I'm live at Stanford University, where tomorrow the Mizzou women's basketball team will be making its third consecutive NCAA tournament appearance. Now, the Tigers were actually a pretty viable candidate to play host to this first round of the tournament, but unfortunately some late season losses cost them that opportunity, and the right ultimately went to Stanford. Now, the Tigers do plan to use some of that frustration, though. At the press conference today, the Tigers talked about how the recent losses gave them a little bit of a gut check, helps them buckle down and focus on the game ahead. Tomorrow at 2:30, coming up in the sports block, we'll look at who they're playing. Back to you guys.
All right, Landon, thank you. Tonight, we've learned one engineer reported cracking before a Miami pedestrian bridge collapse. Florida officials, transportation officials, say the engineer called 2 days before the collapse on Thursday. At least 6 people are confirmed dead from the collapse. Crews believe that number could be higher. Crews started removing the collapsed bridge earlier this afternoon. There is no current timetable for its removal.
3 bridges in Columbia were built using the same technology as the bridge in Miami. The I-70 overpasses at Rangeline, Garth, and West Boulevard were all constructed using ABC technology. ABC, or Accelerated Bridge Construction, means prefabricated pieces of bridge materials are brought and assembled on site. Even though it was used in the Miami bridge, MoDOT says pedestrian bridges and vehicle bridges here in Missouri are completely different. That means Missouri drivers have nothing to worry about.
They shouldn't, and if we do find anything that's wrong, we close the bridge. If we deem it to be unsafe, we will close it. So any bridge that is open is safe. It might be a little bit deteriorated, maybe not look so great, but it is safe.
There are no pedestrian bridges in Missouri that were built like the one in Florida, and MoDOT says it requires all pedestrian bridges to be inspected every 5 years. Bikers, runners, and walkers are now able to use the full MKT trail before expected. KOMU 8's Sydney Olson is in the studio to tell us what trail users will notice on their hikes.
3 bridges and the Stadium Boulevard access point to the MKT trail reopened today, about 2 weeks ahead of schedule. The Department of Parks and Recreation expected the project to be completed around March 31st. Trail goers will see brand new bridges with even surfaces and some signs of construction along the path. The project closed a quarter mile of the MKT trail, so Parks and Rec created several detours that involve some streets and sidewalks for people to use during construction. Parks and Recreation says the department encouraged people to use other trails during the construction. One employee says it was time for the bridges to be replaced because of old age.
Most of these bridges are 100-year-old railroad bridges. They were designed to carry trains, but even so, they're 100 years old, and so they will all need to be replaced over the next 20 years or so.
Mike Schneider says the park sales tax will be up for renewal in about 4 years for the public to approve the replacement of 2 more bridges. In the studio, Sydney Olson, KOMU 8 News.
So will you be able to enjoy those new bridges this weekend? Let's check with Megan to see what the weekend weather looks like. Megan? We have an update on an arrest of a Holt Summit man from earlier this afternoon. Anthony Rowell is accused of using a taser to threaten a woman outside a bar and raping her in November. Rowell was arrested Wednesday. Police say they found a stun gun at Rowell's home with a long strand of hair on it. He is currently in Boone County Jail being held on a $200,000 bond.
After thousands of high school students walked out of their classrooms peacefully this week, most schools around the country are showing their support. National Walkout Day did not bring any punishment for students in Columbia Public Schools. Students were encouraged to express their freedom to protest without fear of punishment. The same goes for higher education institutions as well. Stephen College is just one school that will not punish any prospective student if they participated in the walkout and were disciplined.
It probably almost would be a bonus to see something like that on a transcript if it had to do with something like addressing a social issue.
Some schools in other states were not so understanding. One school in California even locked the school gate, which students ended up pushing open. It's been about 100 years since women were first allowed in the military, and since then, the chance to enlist has changed millions of women's lives across the country. KOMU8's Maya McDonald tells us the story of several women who've served.
100 years since women first got the chance to enlist in the military.
In the very beginning, men pushed back in the late 80s. There still was the pushback. Well, I pushed through, and a lot of women pushed through, and it made the time rewarding because if you show them you can do the job and you change one person's mindset, it's worth that.
When I enlisted, it didn't really mean anything. When I got through with basic, it was just the pride. It was that was my flag. I took it personal. This is my army, my military, my country, and I just love it.
Two stories that drive home the same message. Maya McDonald, KOMU8 News, Columbia.
Women first had the chance to enlist in the military in 1917 and 1918, despite many disguising themselves as men to serve years earlier. Coming up, Mid-Missouri Girl Scouts are working to send its signature item around the world.
Plus, a competition for a new Mid-Missouri playground coming down to its final hours. We've got breaking news out of Washington. Former FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe has been fired less than 2 days before his official retirement. McCabe stepped down from his post as Deputy Director earlier this year after being the frequent target of President Trump. McCabe was accused of misleading investigators during a look into the Clinton Foundation.
Well, Girl Scout cookies are a popular commodity this time of year.
Find out how one group of scouts is working to make sure everyone gets to enjoy them.
Troops giving to troops. We're talking about Girl Scout troops and military service members. KOMU8's Olivia Gerling is in the studio to tell you what those two groups of troops have in common.
These probably look pretty familiar if you've ever bought any Girl Scout cookies. So if you take a look inside, pull out some cookies. I think you know where I'm going with this. I like Thin Mints. But this isn't just a story about cookies. It's about giving those serving overseas a little taste of home.
We support the Troops to Troops program as a way to say thank you to the men and women serving overseas.
You know the saying that, baseball and apple pie is American? I think the third thing on the list would be Girl Scout cookies.
Thin Mints, shortbread cookies, and caramel delights, they buy them all.
It actually makes the people in the military feel at home.
Cherry Hill Dental buys 2 cases of Girl Scout cookies from each troop who shows up at their door. Cherry Hill Dental says that they've had about 26 Girl Scout troops come to visit them in the past week and a half alone. They buy 2 cases of Girl Scout cookies with each troop. So with 12 boxes of cookies in each case, that's a lot. About 624 boxes, if you do the math.
You open that box up and there's those Thin Mints, or those, it's just, I don't know, it's like coming back home.
All to send to troops overseas.
There was no value you could place on a box of cookies.
Cherry Hill Dental says they plan to continue to buy cookies through April 1st. In the studio, Olivia Gerling, KOMU8 News.
Today is the last day to vote for New Haven Elementary in the Project Playground contest. The school started the national contest back in February. After weeks of voting, the school is in second place and behind by about 5,000 votes. The principal says no matter the outcome, the support they've received is what matters the most.
It is overwhelming to feel how supportive businesses and, large and small, the university, just the community at large, and our colleagues have been so supportive of this.
Voting for Project Playground ends tonight at 11:59. You can find a link to the voting page on KOMU.com. The Missouri Tigers will battle it out against the Florida State Seminoles, looking for their first tournament win in 8 years.
A live update from Bridgestone Arena. That's next in sports.
Now from the Ford Sports Desk, KOMU 8 Sports.
An overtime game in one of the earlier Nashville first round of the tournament means Missouri men's basketball's matchup with Florida State got pushed back a little bit. KOMU 8's Matt Weller is outside the Bridgestone Arena in downtown Nashville with the latest. Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Ben. I'm outside Bridgestone Arena in just a few minutes. Missouri and Florida State getting ready to tip off the final NCAA tournament game of the round of 64. We just found out a few minutes ago that Michael Porter Jr. is not going to start in this game. It'll be Jonte Porter replacing Jordan Barnett in the starting lineup. Barnett, of course, suspended for this game, may be available Sunday if Missouri is able to pull this one out. Barnett averages about 13 points a game, and the Tigers have told us all week that they're going to need to replace his scoring by committee and not just with one player. We will see how many of his minutes, though, Michael Porter Jr. is able to play. Played 23 minutes last week when we saw him in the SEC tournament against Georgia. Figure to see him a little bit more in this one. Earlier today, Kevin Purrier told us what he has seen from Porter in practice this week.
And, he's been out the game for quite a while now, but he's coming along really nicely. And with how we've been practicing leading up to this point, from some full speed, getting up and down for a while practices, I think that's just helping him even more.
Just 7 scholarship players for the Missouri Tigers in this one, so it'll be a lot of minutes for everybody on the roster. The Xavier and Texas Southern game just wrapped up inside of Bridgestone, so Missouri and Florida State now on the court for warm-ups. Tip-off for this one set for 9:41 p.m. local time. For now, reporting live in downtown Nashville, Matt Weller, KOMU 8 Sports.
Thanks, Matt. We'll have more updates at 10 when that game gets underway. Now let's send it to Palo Alto and KOMU 8's Landon and Burke. He has a preview of the Mizzou women's first round game tomorrow against Florida Gulf Coast. Take it away.
Hey, Ben, thanks. Yeah, we got more Tigers to talk about here in California. The women's team will be taking on Florida Gulf Coast University tomorrow. Now, at the press conference earlier today, the team talked about how it's a very winnable game, but there's still some things they need to look out for. Number one, FGCU is pretty good at the three-point line, so they'll have to keep an eye on that. Number two, watch their spacing. Don't let the opponent get them out of place when they're on defense. Now, the women's team will play tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. You can catch that game on ESPN2 with highlights on KOMU 8 News at 6, 9, and 10. Reporting live in Palo Alto, Landon Burke, KOMU 8 News.
Well, that's about all the time we have for now. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you back here at 10 o'clock. Have a good night.